In 1942, the German V-2 was the first rocket to reach 100 kilometers from the Earth's surface, the boundary of space. The rocket was designed by Werner von Braun, who later worked with NASA and the creator of the rockets that went to the moon. In 1947, the first animals were launched into space. Fruit flies were used to study the effects of space travel on animals and were chosen because they are more similar to humans than you might imagine. The flies traveled with a supply of corn to eat on the flight. Albert II was the first monkey in space. He was a rhesus monkey, a type of monkey that originally comes from Asia. Albert went into space on June 14, 1949 in a specially adapted America V-2 rocket that flew to a height of 83 miles from Earth. On October 4, 1957, Russia launched the first satellite into space. Sputnik 1 and the space age had probably begun. In November 1957, the Russian space dog Laika became the first animal to orbit the Earth. Laika traveled in a spacecraft known as Sputnik 2. Laika means barker in Russian, and her mission helped scientists to understand whether people could survive in space. On April 12, 1961, Russian cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first man in space. Gagarin's spacecraft Vostok 1 completed one orbit of the Earth and landed about 2 hours after launch. Gagarin had to bail out and landed using his parachute because the Vostok 1 was designed to crash land. In 1966, NASA sent a robot spaceship to make sure man could land safely on the moon. It was called Surveyor 1, and it made the second soft landing on the moon on May 30, 1966, a few months after Russian Luna 9 landed successfully. On July 20, 1969, Neil Armstrong and then Buzz Aldrin took one small step and became the first man on the moon. Their spaceship Apollo 11 worked perfectly, flying the 250,000 miles to the moon and bringing them all the way back safely to Earth. From 1971, American astronauts on the 4th, 5th, and 6th Apollo missions enjoyed use of a moon car to explore the moon, known as the Lunar Rover. It was electric-powered and had a top speed of 8 miles per hour. In 1973, Russian space probe Mars 2 explored Mars, the fourth planet of the solar system. The probe was made of two parts. One part stayed in orbit for a year, sending pictures of Mars back to Earth. The other was to land and explore the surface of Mars, but it was destroyed when its parachute failed to open. The U.S. Space Shuttle era begins with the flight of Columbia. The space shuttle was designed to reuse for up to 100 visits to space in an attempt to make space travel less expensive. The Mir space station was built in sections, each piece launched by a rocket and then joined together in orbit. Construction started in 1986, with the last piece being completed 10 years later. Mir was the first consistently inhabited long-term space station. Mir was destroyed in 2001 when it burned up as it crashed back to Earth. In 1998, the International Space Station is established. In year 2000, the first permanent crew moved into the International Space Station, or ISS, where crews of astronauts have been living ever since. The ISS is a huge space station for research and space exploration that began construction in 1986, with the final major module arriving in 2010. Virgin Galactic, a company owned by entrepreneur Richard Branson, accepts reservations on suborbital spaceflights. The U.S. Messenger mission to Mercury, launched in 2004, finally begins its year-long orbit of the planet.